I'm hoping maybe Katie can help me out with the chat as we're going, because it might be, thank you, Katie, it might be hard for me to see what's going on as I'm going through the slideshow, and we'll do a quick demo and things like that. So first, let me just introduce myself. I am Diane Horvath, and I am a technology integration specialist who also runs a makerspace at a middle school in Massachusetts. And so I actually have just begun using microbits, and I am so excited to kind of share what I've learned and what some good entry points are for you to begin with students. Because what I'm finding is there's like this wide range of students that come with zero experience, and they come to you and they say, oh no, I don't know how to code. And then there's kids that have definitely taken off and kind of found it as their own interest and have taken courses and summer camps and things like that. So what I found is that I use MakeCode because it has these built-in tutorials for students to follow at their own pace. It gives them kind of a basic place to begin, and then we kind of hack their game. And so we use some of the things that are already built into MakeCode to do that. And so this is where kind of the idea starts of hacking your microbit game. So we're taking the idea of this classic game that students already know how to play without any technology. So one of those games happens to be something where they use to make decisions. And so that's that good old rock, paper, scissors game. And we can use that, and while they're learning how to code this game, you can take that game and apply it to other areas, other projects, or you can use it just to kind of level up their skills when they're coding. So we're going to be using the code editor makecode.microbit.org, and that's available on any browser on any device, which makes it super, super easy to use. And it already has those game tutorials kind of built in. So I'll show you what that looks like and how you can use them. They're also very short projects. So if you're limited in time, so I meet with my students once a week for about 30 minutes, and you know how fast that time can go. So I use that time to do really short projects to give them some success, and then they can, those kids that can kind of go on, there's a way to kind of level up those skills. And it works across those different learning environments. So it works across in-person, the hybrid model, and the remote model. So the example that I'm about to show you is one where I had some students working remotely at home, and then I had students in person. So obviously the in-person students are pretty lucky because they get to actually download the code onto the device itself. But we do have that online simulator for students at home to participate on and practice that code in almost the same way. And then we'll talk about how can you hack that code? What does that mean? So we'll go through some of those examples. And so here is one of my favorite students. She is just learning how to code this game, and she figured it out herself. So let me just show you this 30-second video of her doing this. Hopefully it shows up here.
We can play rock, paper, scissors with it. We can play rock, paper, scissors with it. If you shake it, it'll change to paper, rock, or scissors. This one's paper. Change it again. Paper again, but that's scissors. And let's see if it goes to rock. Paper. Rock. That's rock.
There you go.
And you just shake it and you can play with it. Like she played with it.
Yeah.
Ready?
Rock, paper, scissors.
You win?
There was a rock. So
Rock? Oh, it won!
You guys are too funny. Old school, new school.
Okay, so that was just really simple. They could code that pretty easily and really quickly. All right, so what I'd like to do is kind of walk you through just that coding process using MakeCode. You can either follow along and head over to makecode.microbit.org, or you can just feel free to watch. What we're going to do is talk about how can you code this game. It's using the accelerometer in the microbit itself. It's also using some if statements or the logic piece in coding. It's using that LED display, and we're going to learn about how to create a variable for this. So it actually entails some pretty good skills for them to learn and apply later on. And what I always do is have people think about how do you actually play the game? How do you play rock, paper, scissors? right? The rock, you know, you shake your hands, 1, 2, 3, and you either make a rock with your fists, you make a scissors holding your 2 fingers out, or you make paper with all of your fingers extending out. And one covers, you know, rock smashes the scissors, scissors cut the paper, and paper covers the rock. So I always want them to kind of think through what exactly are they doing before they even code this game. So now if I head over to the makecode.microbit.org site, and let me just make sure I can share this tab. Yeah, right. You can extend the game. That's exactly what I want you to think about. So on the Microbit MakeCode site, and it's just taking a second to load. Oh, did I go back? Sorry about that. I'm just refreshing my screen. On that screen, it's going to show you different rows once it loads. So the top row is just the projects that you're using or that you've already created, and it saves them automatically. And what Katie had shared before in her tutorial was that it's saving locally to your device. So no accounts are needed when you go to the MakeCode site, which is a bonus for us because, you know, how many accounts can students really have? So you can see already that these are ones that I can go back and I can open up already. And I didn't have to do anything extra to save those. There are lots of different tutorials here, but what I found that really works well with middle school students are either the games or the radio games. And so we're going to start here because it's an excellent entry point. And once I tap on that, you're going to see they have options of doing it in block-based, Python, or JavaScript. And so we're going to start with blocks. And of course, if you have a student that says, I already know how to do blocks, I'm ready for the text-based coding, you can send them over to the JavaScript or Python if you want to. But right here, this is super nice. So kids can work at their own pace and everything's color-coded and it gives you only the blocks that they really will be using for this. So there's no confusion there. Then you have your online simulator on this part of the screen. So right away, it's telling me that I'm not going to use these initial blocks here, the start block or the forever. I'm grabbing that input block called onShake. So when I shake my device, that's going to trigger the events to happen. So think about that as when they say 1, 2, 3, and you're kind of shaking your fist. The other thing I always point out to students is that they can check their own code, or if maybe they didn't understand what it's saying up here, is that use that light bulb. That is there to help you. Next, you're going to go in and you're going to start to create a variable. So I'm just tapping on here, and the variable we're going to make is to represent our hand. So you just call it hand, say OK, and it already creates these blocks for you. We're going to drag those set hand into the onShake container block. Right now it's saying set hand to 0, which doesn't make too much sense for our game because we actually have three options, right? Rock, a paper, or a scissors. So we want to change that so that it does it randomly and it picks from a number 1 to 3. And we're going to assign those numbers to those different options. So I'm going to go into my math drawer and pull out pick random and replace that 0 with the pick random from 0 to 10. We don't want 10. We want to say we want to pick it from 1 to 3 to represent those. Okay, and we'll double check what we're doing here. We've made that. I think I jumped ahead. I did. Okay, so pick a random block to pick a random number from 1 to 3. All right, next we're going to get into some logic here. So if I shake and I pick a 1, I want it to represent like paper. If I shake a 2, I want it to represent a rock. And if I shake anything else, it's going to represent the scissors. And so I want it to reflect that in my statement here. So I'm going to pull out my if-else statement. and snap it right under set hand. And here I need to change the true. So I'm going back into logic and I'm pulling out a comparison statement here. So in this comparison statement, I actually wanted to say, you know, if my hand is equal to the number 1, I wanted to show something on the screen. So we're going to take advantage of all of those LEDs and pull out that show LED display. And just know that all of these, there's 25 LEDs, it's 5 by 5. And so I'm going to turn on the outside rows to represent paper for this. Okay, so right now if I shake and it comes up with a 1, it'll show up with the paper on the screen. And so this is where that simulator comes into play. Okay, now we're going to keep moving through this and we're going to add on. So we have our paper here, but we need to add some other choices. We need to add the rock and the scissors. So I'm going to bring out that show LEDs and I'm going to put it under that else statement here. And I'm just going to draw some scissors. So I'm going to highlight those little blocks, like 4 of them up in the left corner, 4 in the left bottom corner, and then I'll just do some diagonals to make it kind of look like a scissors. All right. So right now, this is what we have. So we're missing the paper. We're going to have to add the paper to this. And if I tap on that little plus sign at the bottom here, it's going to give me another slot to work with. So now I need to say if hand equals 1, so this will say else if hand equals 2. So you'll notice that this kind of gives us a cue as to what we're going to put here, and that's back in the logic in our statement, our comparison statement here with 0 equals 0. We're going to change that to say the same thing, except change the number. So I'm going to bring in my hand. So if the hand equals 2, I want it to show my LEDs, and I want it to show rocks. So we're just going to create what it kind of looks like a square in the middle to represent the rock. All right, so now we have the 3 coded here. We can check our work and then move on to the next. I think I worked through. So now it's time to test it out. So let's see what we got going on here. If I shake it, I have scissors. If I shake it again, here's the paper. If I shake it again, it might be paper again. Here's scissors, and so on. So what's really nice is that the students can play this against each other, and you can download it directly to your microbit. You can have a student at home online simulate and share their screen and play it with somebody else. But here's where the fun part begins. And let me get back to my slideshow. So here's where you can start hacking and leveling up the game. So what I found that really works well is when students actually publish their game and they get the link to share it, and they could share that with other students, and those students could hack their game or play around with the code. So when I say hack, I mean they're kind of customizing it. Maybe they're remixing some of the things, they're changing what happens, or maybe numbers, maybe they're adding on different parts and pieces to it. So taking advantage of what the microbit has to offer, they could change what the LEDs show on the rock, paper, scissors. So I know somebody said like add a lizard or add something else to it. It could become not a rock, paper, scissors game, but maybe a different game. You could also maybe use sensors in place of things or add some sounds, or you can even increase the range of numbers. So instead of having just 3 choices, you might go up to 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever you want, depending on your game. The other part, and I know this was said in one of the other sessions, is that the students really love doing the radio piece to this. So transmitting a signal to another microbit so that the student receives it. So that might be a fun way to kind of trick students or have a surprise element built into that game. And so I'm just going to show you. I'm hoping this works out here. Oh, I'm sorry. I should share my presentation. Yes. Thank you. Sorry, I'm trying to manage. I've never used this website before. Hopin. Okay, so here is just a really quick example of how we quickly went in the code and changed it to 4. And maybe you can add a skull icon. So if it comes up that and it plays this sad sound, that means you're out of the game completely. So let's see if this comes up. Okay, so you can see maybe kids would have a lot of fun just coming up with some of those different ideas. All right, the other thing that you might do, and this is, I've been working with some 8th grade science students, and we just started a weather unit. And I noticed that this student in particular did a nice job in incorporating what she learned with the rock, paper, scissors. And she actually took that and extended it into the weather station. So let me show you what that looks like. I'm sorry, this isn't sharing very well. Okay, here it is. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. This is not going well.
It's a temperature sensor, and when you press the A button, if it's above 0 degrees Celsius, it'll display a sun, I think, and if it's below 0 degrees Celsius, then it'll display a snowflake, and then after that, it displays the temperature.
So that just told us it is
Above 0 degrees Celsius and specifically 26 degrees.
very good. Cool.
Okay, so that was how she decided to use the light level for her weather station. And in place of, you know, when the light level reaches a certain level, it's going to show a sun and display the temperature. If it reaches a different level, then it's going to show something else. All right, so I wanted to tie this into some of the theme of today and do your bit with the global challenges. And so thinking about the 3 different areas that was mentioned in the keynote, so life below water, life on land, or affordable and clean energy. So one way you might create something with the microbit is just in the learning process for students. And maybe you're creating some type of recycling game that's kind of a remix of the rock, paper, scissors. Or maybe it becomes a random picker for a board game that you actually make. You might have this become some kind of personal device. So think of it maybe as like a Save the Planet game where if you push button A, it comes up with a random act that they have to do for the day. And then they push button B and it's going to keep points of how many times they did these random acts throughout the day. Or maybe it becomes an action tracker where you can use the inputs to collect data, maybe some logic to determine the ways to track that data, and then having notifications come up on the screen through sounds or the LEDs to show that it's actually working. These are links that I just decided to include in this slide because they show some really awesome microbit projects, project winners from students who have done this in the past. Those might kind of spur on some ideas and inspire you in what direction you want to go, because sometimes I just think it's hard, like you need a place to get started and then you can go from there, and maybe this will help kind of inspire that. All right. So with that being said, I don't know, does anybody have, oh, you're welcome, any questions, or you want me to show you anything in particular? I'm hoping this kind of gives you a good starting place. I just know it's really hard to find something for all students. So this is a great way to grab their attention and maybe get them to move into the Do Your Bit challenge. Oh, great. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Art. All right, with that being said, I am going to stop here, and I'm hoping, giving you the best of luck. I'd love to see what projects you come up with, because I'll probably steal those ideas too. Oh, you can't. Okay. Yep, I can show it again. Just give me 1 second. I have to switch over to this tab. For some reason, I have to keep switching. Maybe there's an easier way to do this. You know, the one thing I forgot to mention is that once you finish this tutorial, you're going to notice that all of these, there are extra blocks, all of the blocks will be available to the students. And that's when I kind of tell them, now that you have this game completed, go ahead and go in there and see what you can add or figure out to it. Jana, were you able to get yours to work? Okay. So it's not working when you put it onto the microbit itself? Oh, okay. So sometimes it's a little tricky when you shake it. You kind of have to tilt it a little bit. Okay. Oh, no. Jana, are you on just a desktop or what device are you using? Oh, okay. Oh, gotcha. Okay. Did you pair your device? So one thing that works pretty well, making sure that you pair your device and it finds it. And maybe you lost the connection there. I don't have one connected. Let me click on that. There it goes. And then it should automatically download to your microbit. Yeah. Hey, Art, I'm coming your way too. I'm interested to see what you're doing. Okay. That might be. Oh, good. Katie, is that true? You should be using Chrome? Oh, okay. Oh, all right. So that's something people need to know. Okay. So I just wanted to say thank you for joining me for this session and putting through my little glitches with navigating the screen. Hopefully you got something from it. I'm going to share my presentation one more time, and feel free to reach out with any questions or share what you're doing. Thank you. Have a great rest of the day.